So when the D1 Administrative Committee has approved the transfer portal changes, I hope that they went through you two with this, but what were your biggest takeaways with what they're going to do?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think my wife and children are pleased that, we're moving this to January and doing one portal window. I think that's good for the family, good for vacation time and all that. I think it's I think it's going to be interesting to see how this actually plays out this offseason. I think coaches are generally really pleased to kill the spring window and just do this one time, like the NFL, like college basketball. But I think that there's going to be some difficulties around this. I think one of those things is that the reality is that the tampering's already going on. They're already recruiting next year's team. So what will happen at the end of November? Will players actually stay for bowl games and playoff games, or will they still leave and just kind of go through an off the record recruiting process, and then all that becomes official on January 2nd. Like that's kind of what I think right now. I kind of think that, guys, especially with the rev share payments, like if the guy's leaving your program, are you really going to keep him around in December and pay him for another month, or are you going to help him pack his things? Like it'll be interesting to see how the market actually plays out here. But yeah, 15-day window in January, and we're going to see if we can just get this all done in one little period here. And I think even with all the money being spent on rev share and the fact you can resign your guys, I still think we'll see a ton of movement.
Max, the coaching change portal rule is probably the thing I would think is going to get fought the most, just because it's half the length, and you have to wait until the new coach is announced, and then you have to give them 5 days. I just don't think that that's going to fly, given everything they've been allowed to do since then. And why do I have to wait longer if, say I'm a player from UCLA and I came to play for Deshaun Foster and I don't care who the next guy is?
Yeah, it's and look, I probably should preface all of this by saying, let's just talk about this, that the rules as they're written, knowing that, look, there's probably going to be more antitrust lawsuits around these things, right? And who knows what the final rules end up being, because these things will get challenged. And, you've seen people like Tom Mars threaten that already. Hey, if you get rid of the spring portal, like we're going to file lawsuits. So we'll see how this stuff actually shakes out. But no, you're right, Paul. I think it's an interesting solution, and one that I didn't see coming, to be honest with you. And I think if you're like a Florida fan right now, or one of these, a fan of one of these programs that is kind of heading in a bad direction, and maybe you think a coaching change is coming, it's pretty advantageous for the coaches. It really is. The new plan here is, let's say Florida fires Billy Napier in a couple of weeks. The Florida players would not be able to enter the portal until the Gators name their next head coach. And if they haven't done that within a month, then they got to wait a full month. And so, I think that is a big advantage if you're trying to retain your roster. And look, you talk to a lot of coaches. I talked to Kurt Sinay about this very topic last year. Like there are a lot of these situations where you take over a program and you get there and you're like, okay, a dozen guys are already gone. I'm never going to meet them. They're already in the portal. They left in the interim, right? And so it's like that's always been a very frustrating thing for coaches. And I think the stuff you're seeing right now, like objectively, it's not a great thing that like guys are like leaving Oklahoma State in the middle of the season, right? Like that's not really good for anybody, even if that's the best thing for their individual careers. So they're trying to address that stuff. But you're right, Paul. I mean, will that stuff actually hold up when it's so in favor of the coaches? I don't know.
So knowing the current setup the way that it is, and that they're not trying to mess with the school calendars and those being unique to each university, was there anything that you saw that they could have done to make these things simpler, or is this just kind of dealing the best hand that they could deal with the cards that they have? Or is there something that maybe you thought they could have gone a different direction?
Well, I think the argument that was kind of going on behind the scenes, and you saw Ryan Day allude to it, and Matt Rhule kind of laid it out after the fact, was I think many Big Ten coaches looked at this and said, why don't we just do this in April? Why don't we just have the portal at the end of the school year, basically? And, guys, you don't have to rush through a decision at the end of the regular season about where they're going next and rush to get enrolled at a school in January. But Rhule also pointed out that like they're paying these guys for 12 months. So it's like there's going to be guys that are getting paid by 2 schools here in the spring and stuff like that. And does that even make sense? But I think the problem with that argument is like, I think there's merit to it, but I think that comes with like having to rethink the entire offseason calendar. And, moving off of the 15 spring practices and shifting to more of an OTA model. Like, I think if you want to go in that direction, I think there's some positives to it, but it's got to come with, really kind of redoing the whole thing with the offseason practices, because that's what coaches care about right now, is getting a guy in for January, getting him in offseason training, getting him in for spring practice. So I think if you're going to go in that direction, you got to rethink the whole thing, which is, look, I think we're due for rethinking the whole thing anyways.
Yep.
But I think it's just not one little change. Hey, let's go to April, and then that will magically fix it either.
Max, be honest. Did you ever have, when you started this stop rate, which I love it. I love it when it comes out. I like to see maybe some adjustment along the way. Did you ever have on your bingo card that at the top of that list would be Texas Tech?
Never, ever. No. And I went and looked it up. So we've got the stat website with ESPN that I do this through. You can kind of go look up past seasons, which when I started doing stop rate, I think it was in 17. So it's cool to be able to go look at maybe historical stop rates. I went and looked up what was Texas Tech's stop rate during Patrick Mahomes' junior season when they had the worst defense in the country. And the stop rate was 46% in that season, which tells you they probably should have done more onside kicks, right? Because it was just not working. And yeah, right now they're like 85%. So it's incredible the turnaround they've done there. And look, I know the attention goes to all the transfers they brought in, and certainly that D-line is incredible. But I think it's a credit to Shiel Wood and what he's put together there. And I think it's a credit to what Joey McGuire has done over over his tenure. Texas Tech has not been worst in the country in defense during his time there. And, it was rough during the Cliff days, and while they had the best offenses in the country. It's been a problem just for a decade. So kind of, pretty amazing to see them at that spot right now. And, I think they're going to be in some closer Big 12 games, and they'll probably move down a little bit. But, really impressive and just dominated at all 3 levels from Texas Tech's defense so far this season.
But the most important question, beveled logo or throwback now current logo again?
I still got a lot of love for the beveled.
Okay.
Yeah, that was, I see what they're doing. But I still enjoy the beveled.
It is.
I think that was 80% on our poll, right?
Yeah. It's amazing to me,
before the bevel,
how we as fans get very worked up over graphic artists. Like we really don't trust those folks. We don't like them, Max. Yeah. I'm curious your thoughts. I know they have a bye this week, but Nebraska last week had that game against Michigan State where eventually they were able to get the car pointed in the right direction and drive away. And this is kind of the Matt Rhule year 3 thing where it kind of feels like they make it up as they go in the first half. The second half, they figure out what they're going to do. Do you see the progress in the little things that can make them a winning program into the future, not just, having a better season this year on into next year?
Yeah. Does that remind you of 19 a little bit? Just a team that kind of figures out how to pull away eventually?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Cause like the first half you'd watch and it would, like I told Matt one time, I was like, this is kind of like Indiana Jones where he's like, all right, I know I have to jump over this thing. I'm just going to throw the whip here and see what happens. And then it works out for him. But that's kind of how they are right now.
Yeah, I think in that one, there were definitely some moments when I didn't get any angry texts from Smokey during that game. I have at times this season. But
Michigan State?
I didn't get any angry texts during that one. There were moments in that game, though, where you're like, oh, man, this is tough to watch. Like, here they go again. And I think the thing that impressed me was just, like, they really were able to beat up Aiden Childs over the course of that game and play better defense just by being as tough as they were and being opportunistic in the second half when they got their chances. And so I think that's just part of the battle for Nebraska is like you just got to figure out a way to win close games and not find ways to lose those games. And so I think Emmett Johnson's playing well. I think Dylan Raiola is the national conversation around him is always like a little weird, but I think he's putting together a pretty good sophomore year so far, and that defense is not bad. So like I think Nebraska. I think they're going to Maryland this week. The schedule's not too tough here over the next few, and I could certainly see them getting back in the national conversation.
Your defense is very highly rated. I still think they had 4 consecutive drives off of 2 picks, a punt return or whatever, inside Michigan State territory, and ended up with like 27 total yards and punted from their own 40, I think, twice.
Cincinnati win's looking a lot better, though.
No, it is. No, it is.
It is, yeah.
Max, if they would have won at Maryland, and that's like even saying that, but if they were to win at Maryland, then they probably end up 8-4. But this is the kind of game that puts them in a position late in the year where they got to win a game to get to bowl eligible. Yeah, this is the one that they normally would lose.
That's right. And you look, Maryland played Washington close and had a big lead on them last week, and they are not bad at all. Like if they lost to Maryland, and part of it because Maryland's pretty good, they've got a really talented freshman quarterback there, and some, it's a good defense there for sure. They're very high in stop rate. But I think that's I think you're right. I think these are the kinds of games that swing it from, hey, you won 6 or 7, and maybe it's not a huge step forward, to you won 8 or 9, and perception is like totally different.
Yeah, Malik Washington from Maryland. He's a dude, and I feel like, I don't know, he's a Maryland guy, so I don't know that he'll ever jump in the portal, but I bet there's going to be a lot of teams behind the scenes that are trying to convince him to. I guess my question for you, Max, is I know that you've covered a lot of Texas and Oklahoma games over the years, and so kind of a two-parter. I was wondering if you have like a particular year or moment or just something from that coverage that sort of stands out above the rest, and also your thoughts on the will he, won't he play of John Mateer and how that feeds into how you think this game plays out this weekend.
Oh my gosh. I feel like we've had I feel like towards the end of the Big 12 run, they had some really incredible games.
Yeah.
The Herman and Sark era games. I remember the Charlie Strong one where nobody saw it coming and they beat Baker. That was a crazy. I want to say that was that Gerard Hurd, I think, maybe at quarterback. Yeah, that was a wild one. I'm not going to this game this weekend, but man, I love that. Like if you're like a Baylor fan or you're a Tech fan, like I know you don't want to hear this, but like try to go at some point in your life, even if you hate both of these programs or don't care about both of these programs. Like just that state fair experience on a Saturday is really special and a lot of fun. And just getting out there early in the morning and having a corn dog and kind of being among these fan bases who like. It's two fan bases that like are not brawling at the fair. Like everyone kind of gets along and is excited to be there. The way the stadium is split, like it's a real special atmosphere. Guys, I don't know on Mateer. I mean, I got no doubt he's pushing to and trying to. I'm sure that Venables is going to go gamesmanship here until kickoff and not tell anybody. Do you think he needs to play for Oklahoma to win?
I don't think you damage his future to win one game.
Yeah, that's where I am too.
And by the way, sometimes we see guys that do it and they end up being just enough, but I think your season could go off the rails if you lose, and he also just delays ever really being healthy.
Max, I'm the only one of the three of us who picked Oklahoma to win, and I think it's that front seven of OU versus a struggling Texas offensive line. That's the difference in the game between two quarterbacks who are struggling right now. I guess Michael Hawkins, you can't say he's struggling. He had one start against Kent State, but this game is not going to be determined by some kind of big offensive run that either one of them go on, I don't think.
Yeah, it's tough too because Oklahoma hasn't lost a conference game. Texas has. Like you can kind of say like, hey, big picture here. Like we're trying to get to Atlanta. Like let's be safe here with Mateer. And he's just such a wild player. And that, like, when you watch in those first few games, you're sort of like, oh man, he is so fun to watch. He might get injured at some point, but he is so fun to watch. And it happened early. And I think they got to be careful here because I do think they know they've got an elite defense. And I think they know that they can make this a low scoring game even without him and have a chance to win. And so my guess is he doesn't, but there's also, you got to remember, there's still that lingering memory of last year where Michael Hawkins was just so overwhelmed against that Texas defense and Oklahoma could not do anything. And so I'm sure he's better. I'm sure he's adjusted to playing under Ben Arbuckle and he's got another year under his belt and stuff. But I'm sure that's in the back of everyone's mind there still of like, yes, we probably could beat Texas based on how Texas looked last week. But man, he really struggled last year. And it's going to be, if it's close, they're not going to leave it up to Mateer, but it's a very interesting decision for Brent Venables, and I'm for a team that, like we said, I think has a chance to, it's a really hard schedule, and you got to have Mateer for all of it, right? So it's a really dicey call this week.
Yeah, it's Hawkins was awful, and again, didn't have much protection, but he was just hassled from day one or play one in that game last year. Thank you very much. We'll figure Ben Arbuckle, this will be an opportunity for him. If he ends up playing Hawkins only and they win and they're okay, that's a hell of a nice feather in the cap of Ben Arbuckle to set up a scheme that can help him out on offense. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it, Max. Appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks, guys. Hey, quick one for you. Thoughts on Life of a Showgirl so far? What do you think?
Look, I'm a fan. I'm a fan, Max. I'm a Swiftie, so I think it's good.
What happened?
He asked about the Taylor Swift
Yeah,
album.
I have not listened. I cannot give any opinion on it.
Get fired up, guys. It's pretty good.
Okay,
Yeah.
We'll do.
I'm glad there's finally another one.
We'll let Smokey know who Taylor Swift is during the commercial break.
Well,
he's a little tuned out.
I tell you what, it's not
Smokey,
so much
this is Travis Kelce's fiance.
Yeah,
Okay, Max, I'll tell you this.
That girl he's dating.
I think it's hilarious from Travis Kelce's perspective if you're any one of her ex-boyfriends before.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think they're stoked when they listen to Wood. I'm with you on that.
Thank you, Max. Great stuff.